Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. This is a live stream 1207. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then usually we'll take a peek at a game. Maybe I'll unbox a board game. We'll page through a role-playing game release. Sometimes I have a topic that we discuss, and every once in a while we just hang out and talk with the folks in chat. Well, tonight I am going to kick off Monte Cook Games Month because all throughout July we are going to be taking a peek at, and I will be reviewing games from the aforementioned Monte Cook Games. Tonight we're going to dive on in and take a first look at the horror role-playing game, the Magnus Archives. So this is based on the popular podcast. I am not familiar with it. I have heard things about this game, though, and it is, of course, built on the Cypher system, as with the vast majority of releases from Monte Cook Games. So we're going to be taking a peek at that. Do want to mention, if you're tuning in for that first look, we always tackle the tabletop gaming news first. So it's probably going to be 35, maybe 40 minutes before we get into that first look. So if you're watching live, just kick your feet up, relax, enjoy yourself. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll have some fun along the way. Now, of course, if you're watching this after the stream ends, maybe on Memorex, you will find that there are timestamps. Now, you'll find them down in the show notes, and depending on the device you happen to watch this on, might be right there in the timeline of the video. Of course, when you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. First out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. Yes, the Madman is back, according to him. I believe the Madman was on vacation for a couple of weeks. And of course, the Madman also happens to be one of our chat moderators. Sean O'Donnell is with us, as is Captain Finity Time Travel Police, Wallona's Cave, Semper Buffo, Roger Perdome, DB, Spelling Mistake, and Mike is with us. Oh, and Stephen from Roll for Combat is popping on in. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Roll for Combat when we wrap up the news. Maybe a little random musings to discuss there. So Pete Straklich says they heard some crazy tabletop role-playing game news today. If it's the news I think it is, it's not really news. We'll talk. If it's what I think it is, if we're talking Diamond, this is something that's been kind of bouncing around for a little bit. I know Steven over at Roll for Combat, I want to say it was today, shared a video detailing the rather disastrous goings-on following the Diamond distributors' bankruptcy. And, of course, didn't get into everything about it because there's a lot going on there. Anyway, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that if Steven's still hanging out. after the news. And of course, I want to make sure to say hello to the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D, if she is with us this evening. She's another of our chat moderators. She with the glittery band hammer. So Steven says it was today, but the new issue just happened last week. That's one of the things I was like, it's not news today. It's just Steven telling people about this. But it's something affecting a lot of companies. I think like about 150. Some comic publishers, game companies, game publishers, stuff like that, book publishers. So we'll chat a little bit about it. I mean, I don't want to steal Steven's thunder. It's his thing, you know. Anyway, so let's jump on into the news, because now available from Exalted Funeral is Boreal Frostlands. Here's the scoop. You came here, foolishly, looking for loot or glory. Now, try not to freeze. Inspired by Arctic lore and the likes of The Thing and The Terror, the Boreal Frostlands are a vast icescape located in the icy north. Its peoples do not have much way of contact with outsiders and only very reluctantly yield to the notion that there are warmer lands elsewhere. The Frostlands are dotted with ruins, temples both old and new, strange sightings, and formidable beings bound in the permafrost, aching for a thaw. Floating in the ice floes at the top of the world is Iceberg City, where notorious factions struggle for warmth and all the compasses point north in a dizzying spiral. So what do you get? 40 punch-out modular hexes in cardboard, heavy-duty Game Master screen containing hex descriptions, optional rules, tools, random tables, a mini-adventure, and a detail of the Iceberg City. A handout poster depicting that aforementioned Iceberg City and the permafrost drilling platform on heavy paper. A cloth bag, because these hexes are made to be drawn randomly. And 2 pamphlet dungeon modules expanding upon locations found in the hexes. Unlike previous sets, the Frostlands unnumbered hexes are double-sided, depicting either snow plains, ice flows, cold water, or mountains. If the GM pulls out one of these, they can toss it in the air to determine which side remains up. The encountered tables in the GM screen will have different options to match the respective terrain. This is compatible with Undying Sands, Bottled Sea, and Hex Crawl Toolbox, which all have these various different hexes. Gotta say, this sounds kind of interesting if you are looking to run some adventuring in a frozen northern area. This is, in my opinion, it does feel like it's kind of aimed at OSR, which is fine, cool with me. But yeah, kind of interesting. Also, want to mention that the fine folks over at Exalted Funeral are sending along another package of goodies, including Weird Heroes of Public Access, which I shared a news piece about last week. Sweet. All right, let's see. Game Cat is with us, as is Robert Santon. We got a nice chat rocking and rolling already. Now, last week I mentioned the second edition of the Laundry role-playing game is now out in PDF from Cubicle 7 Games. And I've got the lowdown on the Supervisor's Guide. Assign your team, exercise evil, get paid. New edition, new system, new management. The world of Charles Stross's book series, The Laundry Files, returns to the game table with this new edition of the Laundry role-playing game. The Laundry role-playing game Supervisor's Guide provides game masters with everything they could need to run missions, sending laundry agents into the most dangerous situations and battle evil way above their pay grade. Assign operatives determine which evil poses the highest threat to our reality, and craft the most exciting adventures the team may just survive. Once you've signed Redacted and filled in the necessary paperwork, you'll be authorized to plan the most exciting missions for your field operatives. Send agents on thrilling training courses to ensure they complete missions on time and on budget. Learn the secrets of Blue Hades, Deep Seven, and prepare for Case Nightmare Green. Uncover the mysteries of the laundry itself. Discover rival agencies from around the world, all fighting to acquire rare occult artifacts. Enforce thrilling performance reviews to ensure your team meets their KPIs. You'll be able to grab this 160-page PDF right now over at DriveThruRPG for $32.99. I got to say, the PDF pricing is higher because, obviously enough, Cubicle 7 Games has to pay the licensing for this IP. When we talked about the player's book last week, I want to say I think it's the Operative's Guide. It's either Operative's Guide or Operative's Handbook. I said, hey, you know what? I'm not sure what kind of system this runs on, because the original Laundry role-playing game was built on basic role-playing, essentially called Cthulhu. It was percentile-based. This, I do believe, is a D6 system. Now, I don't know if we're looking at a dice pool system or if we are looking at so many six-sided dice, you got a target number you're rolling against. I do not know. But of course, we'll get an opportunity to take a far, far closer look at this when the physical books come out. So pretty sweet. Spelling mistake thought it was Landry Files for so long. You know, it's kind of funny. I started listening to some of the Laundry Files audiobooks. Oh, it's probably, I don't know, 3 years ago, maybe. And I also started to check out the Dresden Files audiobooks. And it was kind of interesting because I had people recommend both. And I was a little familiar with the Laundry because I had shared that review years and years ago about the first edition, at least the core book. I got to say, I like the Laundry Files better than the Dresden Files. And it's funny because the Dresden Files actually takes place in Chicago for the most part. And it does have a little bit of a Kolchak the Night Stalker vibe. Although, of course, is it Harry Dresden? For some reason, I want to say that's their first name. Spelling mistake says Spike from Buffy reads some of the Dresden File books. I want to say, I thought, isn't his name Robert Marston? Marster or something? Marston is the name of the family with the deserted house in Salem's Lot. I don't think it's Marston. I think it's Marsters. There you go. Sean O'Donnell checking in with us. James Marsters. Thank you. Madman mentioned that as well. I did not watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Just Elliot Miller, my best friend, he watched it. He was a fan. I just never got into it. Just no. Spelling mistake says they're also from Chicago, and the geography in Dresden Files is awful. I hate that. I hate when a book is set in a location and it's just completely wrong. Just like I hate when I'm listening to like a nonfiction book and the person who's narrating the book cannot pronounce names and locations correctly. Give you an example. I don't recall what the book was off the top of my head. And they were talking about Des Plaines, Illinois. That is the name of the suburb, Des Plaines, Illinois. And they kept calling it Des Plaines. And it's like, God damn it. Or there's an excellent book about the EC Comics and the big scandal and how they had a Senate committee and how the comics code came about. Really, really good book. And the narrator's really good too. But he kept calling the Submariner the Submariner. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. It's not the Submariner. Kevin R. Smith is with us in chat, said they would have mispronounced it. Des Plaines. Well, it's Despplaines. I think. I've never lived there. I've been there. I've had friends who lived there, but all righty, moving right along. There's an absolutely rocking new deal, which is available over at Humble Bundle. And I've got the deets on the Roll Big or Go Home Mega Bundle. Roll big or go home. Gather up your party for the ultimate tabletop role-playing game adventure with the, once again, Roll Big or Go Home RPG Mega Bundle. This legendary 50-plus title bundle is jam-packed with rulebooks, auxiliary resources, soundtracks, and more for you to enjoy. Help On bring elemental balance to the world in Magpie Games' Avatar Legends, the role-playing game. I don't know if that's how that character's name's pronounced. I've never watched Avatar Legends. Or I should say Avatar The Last Airbender. We also have the ability to use your best Chrome to smoke corpos and Artel Saurian Games' Cyberpunk Red. And roleplay as a robot in disguise in Renegade Game Studios' Transformers role-playing game. Play the best games from the best publishers with the biggest tabletop role-playing game bundle ever. I don't know if it's the biggest, but I will tell you, it is super impressive. Plus, a portion of your purchase will help support Extra Life. Now, you can hop on board for a donation of $15 or more, little pricier than what we normally will see with a Humble Bundle. Some of them start at $1, some of them start at $5. This one starts at $15, but you'll score 19 different items. And I've got to say, this includes role-playing game core books. You're seeing some of them, but I'm telling you, this just a sheer amount of really, really impressive role-playing games. It's kind of mind-boggling. That's the reality. Now, if you go all in for a minimum donation of $40, you will get all 57 items on offer. Vast majority of these items are core rule books. So there are a couple, like I think Savage Worlds gets Deadlands as well as the Savage Worlds core book, which I think for some strange reason they show the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition core book for the Deadlands entry there. Take a peek. It'll blow you away. But this is one thing I do want to mention. Well, on paper, this is like, holy shit. Look at all this stuff. This is really aimed, at least in my opinion, for someone who's shopping around for a new role-playing game or someone who's brand new to the hobby and haven't decided on a role-playing game, because it's almost all core books. Now, as Kevin R. Smith points out, there's also Pine Box Elementary. So middle school, Pine Box, Texas. Anyway, it's not like the other bundles we'll see. Just like originally, this news piece was going to be Monte Cook Games. And yes, I know I don't normally double dip with a news piece and a first look from a publisher, but they have a Numenera bundle that's going on right now that is super impressive. I shared a news piece on the website about it. Whereas if you are interested in Numenera, that would be a must own because it's got practically everything that's been published for this edition of Numenera. Pretty wild. As far as this bundle goes, the savings will run through July 21st. And once again, don't forget, any purchase you make will benefit Extra Life. So very nice. Chris Lundgren's with us in chat. WForge has mentioned they're throwing money at this bundle. Chris Lundgren says, darn you for introducing me to Call of Cthulhu. Although they said Call of Cthulhu, because there is a game, Call of Cthulhu. But I know that's not what Chris is talking about. They're talking about Call of Cthulhu. And I have to laugh. When I pronounce it Cthulhu, on occasion, I will have somebody leave a comment saying, I can't stand how you pronounce Cthulhu. And it's like, okay, it's how every horror author out there, including Stephen King, pronounces it. So I'll just go with how they pronounce it. And yes, I understand. Supposedly Lovecraft said that it's not, you're not even supposed to be able to pronounce it or whatever. It's like, okay. So do me a favor. I don't need any comments going, oh, you're not pronouncing it right. I'm pronouncing it the way 99% of the world does. So there you have it. Kevin R. Smith says they suspect they paired Deadlands and Savage Worlds Adventure Edition because the other Savage World content was in another tier. W4 is asking for clarification. What's the main Call of Cthulhu rulebook? Keeper's Guide or Investigator's Guide? It is the Keeper's Guide. I misremembered. It's been a long time since I took a peek at the core books. So, Spelling Mistake says, friendly reminder to adjust your donation in Humble Bundle before you check out because the default percentage to charity is low. 245 Trioxin is joining us this evening also. Very cool. Very nice. Moonlight Long, the eagerly anticipated Dolmen Wood is out, well, at least digitally. And here's what I know about the Player's Book. The complete player's guide to the beguiling realm of Dolmenwood, a moss-clad forest on the borders of fairy, rife with intrigue, secrets, and magic. Step then, bold and foolhardy adventurer, into the tangled wood and beware, for little here is as it seems. Dolmenwood is a weird fairy tale adventure game conjuring the wonder, horror, whimsy, and strangeness of British folklore. This 192-page PDF includes an introduction to the intrigues and mysteries of Dolmenwood, 6 kindreds, goat-headed Breggles, starry-eyed elves, tricksome Grimalkin cat fairies, everyday humans, fungus-riddled mosslings, and bat-faced woodgrus. 9 classes: the bard, cleric, enchanter, fighter, friar, hunter, knight, magician, and thief. 4 kinds of magic: mighty arcane workings, fairy glamours and runes, holy prayers to the saints, and the odd knacks of mosslings. Flavorful equipment with lists of adventuring gear, arms, mounts, hounds, tavern fare, beverages, pipe leaves, fungi, and herbs. Complete game rules, including easy-to-follow procedures for travel, camping, foraging, dungeon delving, encounters, combat, and downtime. Dolmenwood uses a streamlined rules system derived from the 1980s Basic Expert Dungeons & Dragons rules. Players of all editions of Dungeons & Dragons will find the Dolmenwood rules very familiar. Now, this does contain adult themes and elements of horror and may not be suitable for children. Now, this is the first of 3 books. Referees also need the Dolmenwood campaign book and the Dolmenwood monster book. The 192-page PDF can be had over at DriveThruRPG for $15. So yes, Dolmenwood is finally out in PDF. As far as the printed books, not a clue. Because as I mentioned, Exalted Funeral has a package they're putting together to send my way. No mention of Dolmenwood and nothing, in the shipping list includes Dolmenwood either. So I don't know. I don't know when we're ever going to see those physical books. Fat Bearded Guy 13 is popping on into chat. Might be a first-time visit for them because I don't actually recognize that nickname. So if it is your first-time visit, welcome aboard. Enjoy. Jeff Whitty Art is joining us as well from South Korea. Wishing everybody a happy 4th of July weekend coming up. Sweet. I think I've said hello to everybody so far. So very nice. Very nice. Let's finish up with our final news piece because there's a new Landguard backdrop, which has arrived for old school Renaissance role-playing games from Raging Swan Press. Here's the lowdown on fell doings at the Owl and Weasel. Ertaro Reita runs Low City's Owl and Weasel Inn and has, by all accounts, made a success of it. But he has a dark secret. Altero is a purveyor of misery. He kidnaps vulnerable guests who won't be missed and sells them to his friends among the Takolin, consigning them to an unknown but likely hideous fate. Etaro's operation has run like clockwork for the best part of 5 years until a certain group of adventurers arrives on the scene. Landguard backdrops enable a busy game master with minimal effort to customize and stock the presented city location so that it perfectly fits into their campaign. This helps a busy GM to focus on what's truly important for their game, run a better campaign, and have more fun with their friends. You're a game master, you're busy. You want to write your own adventures, but you don't have time to start from scratch, and you don't want to use commercial modules. You want to make your campaign your own. That's where the Landguard backdrop line comes in. Each Landguard backdrop presents a fully fleshed out and lovingly detailed self-contained locale ready to use as you see fit. Stock the backdrop with smugglers, cultists, thieves, or whatever best suits your campaign. Decide their backstory and gather your players. Landguard backdrops are intended for play in the city of Landguard, thus being called a Landguard backdrop. However, the featured location is relatively self-contained and with minimal effort can easily be modified to fit almost any large town or city. This 15-page PDF is available right now. It is also on sale for $2.78. It's normally $3.75 over at DriveThruRPG, but you can pick it up at least as of this moment for less than $3. Very nice. Very nice. Raging Swan does cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff to kind of, it's a skeleton to build upon. So nice. Knucklebones is with us in chat, mentioning that all 3 of the core books are on DriveThruRPG now. Yep, we'll have news. We'll have news about the Game Master's book or Referee's book, whatever they want to call it, on tomorrow's show. Tessie Trekkie is popping on in, asking if we know what happened with Roll for Combat. Yeah, we were talking about that right at the beginning of the show. We can chat a little bit about that as far as Diamond Distributors selling his stock, keeping the profits. Well, okay. Let's wrap up the news here. So once again, this is the Landguard backdrop fell doings at the Owl and Weasel Inn. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so that was the news for tonight. Of course, I've been mentioning DriveThruRPG. Don't forget the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit DriveThruRPG, Storytellers Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of those One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always help support TGG in a couple of ways. One, you can make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. There's a link down in the show notes for that. You can always buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Yum, 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 yum. Or you can become a member of our Patreon. That's right. And before I move on to our next topic, I do want to thank some generous folks out there, Spencer Lee and Agile Monk, for just amazing one-time donations by way of PayPal. And of course, shout out to our various different tier members of our Patreon. We've got at the $5 level, Gustavo Cavallo, Jason Lahman, Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Marius Smith, and Sean O'Donnell, as well as Talzek. Our $10 members, Dan Webb, Game Cat, Pete Stracklich, RPG Munch, Tessie Trekkie, and Tier 2 DM. And then, of course, we've got our $25 level members, Agile Monk, and the Madman himself. Thank you very kindly, everyone. Gotta say, the Patreon's kind of stagnated. Not really pulling new members in. It's like, I don't know. Just like, the Discord server, I should probably mention. Because if you want to hang with the gang, join our Discord server. There's an invite link in the show notes. There's a lot of stuff down in the show notes. That's been kind of quiet as of late, too. I don't know. Do not know what is going on. All right, so let's see. Kathy Evans is with us. I don't think I said hello to Kathy. All right, so just checking out chat real quick. Chris Lundgren says they think Stephen over at Roll for Combat making products for D&D 5.5, or, as we like to say, the new, not new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, only limits them. All Chris's friends that play D&D are jumping ship to Daggerheart. I think it's a phase. It's just me. I'm just saying it's a phase. And I'll tell you why. Because when the people who go over to Darrington Press and playing Daggerheart, and once again, I haven't seen it. Sammy reviewed it. She reviewed a PDF. She liked it. That's fine. I have nothing against it. It's just, it's just the latest hotness that people are going on about. Just like when we see Matt Colville's game come out. What is that called now? DC 20. Then all of a sudden everybody's gonna be like, oh, everybody's going to play that. But when people go over to Darrington Press looking for additional content, they're not going to find it. So when people are like, oh yeah, I want to get some adventures for Daggerheart, they ain't going to find any. So it's like, okay. Anyway, Pete Stracklich says it's a phase. They still play 5e in hardcore mode. Okay. Kevin R. Smith's asking Stephen from Roll for Combat, I assume you're trying to suss out the exact terms of the Darrington Press license. Yeah, because people may not have noticed, but Roll for Combat does create content for Pathfinder, and now they're starting to do Shadow Dark. Anyway, so there have been some folks out there in chat kind of curious about the situation with Roll for Combat, as well as about 150 other companies, publishers of various different types, Goodman Games, Marvel Comics, DC Comics. It's just a wide spectrum. Because when Diamond Distributors filed bankruptcy in January, that pretty much freed them from actually paying off any of the companies that they had sold stuff for. Because, as Stephen points out in his video that he shared today, Diamond Distributors did just that. They would distribute. So they would get a cut. The end buyer, retailer, what have you, would get their cut. And then, of course, the publisher would get their cut. So, of course, all that got frozen. And as Stephen pointed out, didn't receive any payments from November and December. So the holiday season. And of course, these items are sold by way of retailers. So, right. So Diamond was the middleman here. So they're the ones who had all the contacts, and Diamond, there wasn't really another game in town, especially for comic books. There had been years ago, and yes, I understand there are still smaller, very, very small distributors, but Diamond had things pretty much locked up. That's why the bankruptcy came as a real surprise to a lot of people, because folks thought, hey, they're in good shape. They're okay. Now, I had heard some things behind the scenes because we have friends who are comic book store owners, but it was like, So essentially what happened is all this inventory is locked up. And now, because Diamond filed bankruptcy, they get to sell that to pay their creditors. Even though they don't really own the product, right? They're the middleman. But that is how, I guess, bankruptcy law works in situations like this. So yeah, it is, it's not good. It is really not good for a lot of your favorite comic book and game publishers out there. But yeah, so of course, Stephen's saying it's a bit more complex. Obviously, it's not the topic of the show. So I'm not going to get into all this different stuff. But yeah, that's so basically what's happening, Stephen and Roll for Combat is pretty much screwed. They paid to have product produced. That product went to Diamond so it could get into Barnes and Noble and Books A Million and libraries. And now that's not the case. So all that stuff's sitting there. It's collecting dust. And then Diamond's going to get to liquidate stuff to pay off their creditors. So if you have an Ollie's anywhere near you, if you're familiar with Ollie's, they are a liquidator, right? So they'll sell. That's why you can go and get, oh, look, bath towels for $2.99, stuff like that. So if you'd like to help out Roll for Combat, and I'm not saying you should, because let's be honest, Stephen's kind of a pain in my ass when he shows up. But if you do want to help out and you're interested in picking up something from the Battle Zoo line, be it for Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe order some of that new stuff that's coming for Shadow Dark, do so over at the battlezoo.com. I think it's the battlezoo.com that you can place orders at. Maybe you can do that at rollforcombat.com too. I don't know. See, it's another thing. Steven's trying to confuse people with these different websites doing different things. Anyway, but yes, there you go. Yes, Steven says it goes to the same place. I know, I'm teasing. My God, just trying to lighten up the situation a little bit. Kevin R. Smith says this is taking Green Ronin out of Barnes and Noble. They had a lot of stuff at their local B&N compared to RFC, sadly. Yeah, this is going to have a major impact on geek culture that I don't think a lot of people have realized just yet. So anyway, so just wanted to mention that because I know people were commenting in chat. Like Tessie Trekkie came in and said, "Hey, did you hear about what's going on with Roll for Combat?" It's like, you're late. Talked about that about 5 minutes into the show. So all the best to you, Steven. Hopefully I see you at Gen Con and run the other way. Actually, I normally see Steven over by the press room. It's where I usually run into him. Maybe we'll go have an adult beverage. I've got nobody with on Wednesday, and Thursday I'm flying solo until about midnight when Elliot's train comes in. That's right. He's going to take Amtrak down because I think it was all of $30. And then he's going to ride back up with me. So there you have it. All righty. So tonight we're going to dive on in. We're going to take a look at the Magnus Archives from Monte Cook Games. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
And now, intermission. Refreshment time.
At our refreshment stand, your wish is our command. So the coffee we serve there is pure perfection.
Uh-oh. Ketchup.
Oh! I wish somebody would invent a ketchup bottle that squirts where you aim it.
Mrs. Porter, I've got the next best thing. A new invention from Procter & Gamble. It absorbs like magic. It's called Bounty, the new paper towel that actually attracts moisture. Watch. See Bounty attracting, absorbing moisture. That's because it's more than just paper. It's made a unique new way from a special formula of 6 ingredients, spun into a wonderful new towel. Look again. Compare it to the leading towel. See how Bounty attracts, drinks, sucks up spills faster.
Sort of feels different, too, doesn't it?
Go ahead. Pop it.
Why, it even sounds strong.
No other towel is made like Bounty, in regular and jumbo size. Hurry, get new Bounty. It absorbs like magic.
Hey.
Yeah?
You like chow mein?
Uh-huh.
What kind?
The takeout kind.
You should try La Choy chow mein. It's crisp and crunchy, as good as the takeout kind.
Why?
Because it's quick cooked by me, the La Choy Dragon in Dragon Fire. Here, hold this.
Oh, boy, he's a hot salesman.
Years before man believed he could fly, Jules Verne wrote about a ship like this.
And this is our control center, the very heart of the Albatross. We have now reached a speed of 203 miles an hour, quite literally a ship of the sky.
Vincent Price, perfectly cast as the idealist who pictures himself master of the world. His unwilling guests are Charles Bronson, Henry Hull, Mary Webster, David Frankham. 4 people terrorized into desperate action. Sentenced to terrifying punishment.
I am a man unto myself, Mr. Prudent, who has declared war against war. That is the purpose for which this ship was built. You below, this is Robert speaking. Do exactly as I say. You have no choice.
I don't see that we can merely sit by and watch Rover decimate the entire world.
And what else can we do, Mr. Struck?
Destroy the albatross.
And ourselves with it?
Moment by moment, you cross over new horizons with Master of the World.
London ahead, sir.
Are the leaflets ready for dropping?
Master of the World is dreadful. Just those special effects alone are like, okay, so what kind of drives me nuts with that trailer is how they throw in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Around the World in 80 Days, which, if I remember correctly, I think that won the Academy Award for Best Picture that year, although it really shouldn't. And it's like, no. It's like, if you liked 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, you'll love Master of the World. And I love Vincent Price. I really do. He was supposed to be just a sweetheart of a human being. The other thing about that trailer that looks weird is the I didn't notice the actor's name, but the character, he's short and he must be like the scientist character, right? And he's got kind of the John Calhoun sort of hair from like the American Civil War kind of thing. And he looks more villainous than Vincent Price does. I'm like, okay. Who was it who said, Kevin King said Captain Nemo and Dirigible. Yep, that's pretty much exactly what it is. VS is with us in chat. Might be a first-time visit, not recognizing the nickname. So if it is your first time here, kick back, relax, enjoy yourself. So DB says, you got to see the trailer for Journey to the Center of the Earth, narrated by James Mason and starring Gertrude the Duck. I will bring that to you next week because I already have tomorrow's brief intermission wrapped up. And there will not be a show on Thursday because I am going to be out and about for the 4th of July. So I am going to be traveling, amazingly enough. So there will not be a show on Thursday. Jeff Woodyard said, I laughed, I cried, I shit myself. And then I cried about shitting myself. Sweet. Okay, so tonight we're going to dive on in and kick off Monte Cook Games Month. So every week, okay, so hopefully we get to see the core rulebook for Cypher System, because that was supposed to be in the shipment, but it wasn't. But we're going to take a peek at Monte Cook Games releases, and we'll do it every week. And if I get that Cipher System book, we'll have 4 items so we can do the whole month. And yes, I will be at Gen Con. I saw it. Stephen from Roll for Combat said they were going to invite me to St. Elmo's for dinner at Gen Con. St. Elmo's? I'm not going there. Not since they had that fire. Kevin R. Smith says, looks like Monte Cook Games is going to kickstart a new version of the Cipher System rulebook. I think Kevin's right, but weirdly enough, they just did a new print run, I thought. I don't know. Spelling Mistake says the same thing. W4 Jazz, I meant to ask Jeff if he reached a solution with Cubicle 7. I saw his Mortar and Pestle review. Yes, we did. No big deal. Everything's cool. Troll Lord Games, on the other hand, I will talk about this on tomorrow's show. Looks like there will not be any future coverage of them, at least according to an email that somebody forwarded on to me because they contacted Troll Lord Games to ask how come I wasn't covering any of their stuff anymore. And they got an email in response. They forwarded that email on to me. So, anywho, all right. So, tonight, we're going to dive on in. We're going to take a look at the Magnus Archives from Monte Cook Games. This 384-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $74.99. You can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. Kevin R. Smith says, drama and tea tomorrow. Awesome. DB says, oh God, I hope it's not because of the No Woke Mob video. Don't worry, we'll get into it. As I flip the book over without I grabbed this. I had this all lined up nice and neat. And then I grabbed it before I changed over to the other camera. Anyway, we'll talk about it. You'll find out. It's, they did not give a reason why they were not returning my emails. So this person was told that the emails weren't received. Anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow, as I mentioned. So here we've got the Magnus Archives role-playing game. A few things to mention before we dive on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Monte Cook Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the gaming gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. It's important to know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book. I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. It is based on the podcast. I don't know if the podcast is still active. I've never listened to it. I think it's kind of like a horror anthology, thus the archives. But I also understand you don't need to know anything about the podcast to be able to utilize this role-playing game. And you do not need the Cipher System rule book, to my knowledge, in order to use this. It's got all the rules, I guess. Deep within the archives of the Magnus Institute, an unconventional organization dedicated to researching and cataloging the esoteric and weird, dark things are stirring. An odd figure beckons drunken pubgoers into an alleyway, never to be seen again. A meat grinder somehow compels its users to merely feed in their own limbs. A late-night subway train burrows itself into the earth, all but crushing its lone occupant. For 200 years, the Magnus Institute has quietly collected statements like these from people of all walks of life, detailing their personal experiences with the supernatural. Your organization is dedicated to cataloging and researching these incidents, but it's becoming clear they aren't as isolated as they first appear. There are connections between them, connections that suggest existential dangers to the world as we know it. How will your team combat them when simply coming to understand these dark forces threatens to bring you under their influence? Because when you stare into the archives, something starts to stare back. Work alongside Jonathan and Martin, Basira, Daisy, and the rest of the staff of the Magnus Institute, or create your own branch of investigators. Encounter the not them, the anglerfish, or the man upon the stair. Learn the truth of the books of Jürgen Leitner, the coffin that is also a pin, and the People's Church of the Divine Host. Then it tells us what's in here, but you know what? We're going to take a look inside anyway. So we'll skip that. Okay. Gotta say, very, very nicely done. I don't know if you're picking up the kind of... I just saw it. There we go. So it's actually got a little bit of extra detail that catches the light. That's pretty cool. Paper stock. Very, very solid. Let's take a look at the credits page first. This is written by Monte Cook with Bruce R. Cordell. I think those are the two. But a lot of folks work very hard on this, so let's give credit where credit is due. We've got our table of contents. We've got an introduction, basic concepts, character descriptor and skills, character type, character focus, equipment, ciphers, rules of the game, etc., etc., etc. If you are not familiar with the cipher system, it is a quite unique system. It's been a long time since I've peeked at the core rulebook, and this was the first core rulebook that ever came out. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, Monte Cook Games had Numenera, and then they released Cipher System. And I reviewed the PDF way back when I reviewed PDF, so you know that's a long time ago. So it looks like we get a little bit of fiction to kick off with. Let's take a look at basic concepts. The Magnus Archives is a horror fiction anthology podcast. Hey, so I was right. Okay. Examining what lurks in the archives of the Magnus Institute, an organization dedicated to researching the esoteric and the weird. It follows the actions of head archivist Jonathan Sims as he attempts to bring a seemingly neglected collection of supernatural statements up to date, converting them to audio and supplementing them with follow-up work from his small but dedicated team. Individually, these stories, these statements, are unsettling. Together, they begin to form a picture that is truly horrifying, because as one looks into the depths of the archives, something starts to stare back. I'm looking at you. Kevin R. Smith says they released The Strange before the Cipher System rulebook. Really? For some reason, that doesn't... Maybe I'm thinking of The Weird. Isn't there another one called The Weird that Monte Cook Games released? Well, regardless, the Cipher System rulebook was pretty early in the life cycle here at Monte Cook Games. But it is not a like D20 sort of system. It really works with a lot of keywords and such. Like I said, I gotta be honest, I don't really recall how the system works because it's been so long. This is actually the first physical book I've ever reviewed. Well, even though we're not doing a review right now, but this is the first physical book I've shared video of from Monte Cook Games. So I'm excited to take a peek at this, because we've been talking about, horror role-playing games. We were talking about Kolchak. We had the episode last week. What would a Kolchak role-playing game look like? So we got our character types. So we have supernatural type abilities. We have different tiers. First tier investigators have the following abilities: effort, fit, investigative skills, cipher use. You can use 2 ciphers at a time. Weapons. Your practice with light and medium weapons suffer no penalty. So we have careful observation, decipher, fleet of foot, knowledge skills, missing detail. So we have 2nd tier investigators, 3rd tier investigators, 6th tier investigators. So obviously these have points that you're going to be able to purchase for your character. So then we've got a protector type. The world is full of danger, more than most people even know. Someone's got to shine a light on the darkness, but someone else needs to have that person's back. You're the protector. W. Ford says, I like the cipher system, but I'm not a big fan of the resource management on the player's side of the game. Kevin R. Smith says, cipher system is great because it has medium crunch for the players, but little crunch for the GM. That's nice. That's not usual. Kevin R. Smith says, also, you don't have to do calculations with any number bigger than 30 or add any number to a roll greater than +2. We also have the elocutionist. That's interesting. It's like, okay. The occultist. You've always been fascinated by exactly the things you knew you should leave alone. The mysterious and inexplicable call to you with a dark, low whisper. Your troubled dreams show you things that most people simply could not handle. You're on a dangerous path that will require you to walk among things no human should even be aware of, let alone understand. And each one of those characters do have an example, each of those character types. So we have character focus, or foci, I believe is what they're referred to as. Your focus helps make your character unique. Ideally, no 2 player characters in a group should have the same focus. A focus gives a character benefits when they are created and each time they ascend to the next tier. It's the verb of the sentence, I am an adjective noun who verbs. I actually kind of knew that. This chapter contains a wide variety of foci to choose from, such as explores dark places, infiltrates, and runs away. Let's see, what would Coal Shack be? Tenacious investigator. Who infuriates others. Yeah, maybe that would work. Okay, so we've got explores dark places, helps their friends. And of course, with these foci, I do know, because I've shared plenty of news from Monte Cook Games, we know a lot of times when we have supplements come out, there's new foci that are introduced, and you're obviously, more than welcome to create your own. So here we have Never Says Die, practically lives online, solves mysteries. And I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you and your damn dog. Isn't it true that at no point in time in an episode of Scooby-Doo does a character say, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids? I thought that's one of those Mandela effect things. So avatars. So this looks like this is kind of a character meme, maybe. The lonely, the slaughter, the stranger, the spiral. Get into equipment and gear. Currency and prices. Dollars, yen, pounds, pesos, euros, cryptocurrencies of various sorts. Lots of different currencies might be used in your game depending where in the world it's set and where the player characters go. Specifying a single currency isn't important because we can establish reasonable ranges for equipment prices rather than mailing prices down to the last dollar. Oh, mailing. The font is a little bit smaller than what we tend to see on average. Not unlike saying immediate or short distances rather than giving precise numbers, we talk about goods and services in terms of inexpensive, moderately priced, expensive, very expensive, exorbitant, or priceless items. W4 Jazz, did anyone think that Scooby snacks were pot brownies in disguise? Probably. So I'm surprised they didn't call them doobie snacks. So here we've got our ciphers. In addition to the resources available to a character based on their type or their focus, abilities that are always available and expected, PCs have access to a small number of abilities that are ephemeral and transitory, called ciphers. These abilities represent luck, momentary inspiration, desperation, machinations of the web, or more broadly, the inevitable influence of all the dread powers at work. They can grant a PC a useful power that can restore them, inspire a new plan or direction, ease tasks, and more. Because ciphers are driven by happenstance and the heat of the moment, characters don't choose them. The game master, representing fate in this process, assigns them to the PCs. But as this happens between moments of action or drama, when the player characters are resting, the players also have a hand in directing the narrative that ciphers affect. This is because the player chooses when to use a cipher and which one they use. Heath Strakowitz says, yep, they were definitely getting high with Scooby. Well, I think it was, there you go. Kevin Smith's like, I think that was mostly Shaggy. Yeah, I think so too. So we've got cheating death, instant curiosity, gift of the piper. Seeing your chance, you take an immediate additional action on your turn. So as we can already tell, just by paging through, this is a very narrative game. If you are somebody who wants to simulate down to the smallest detail, this doesn't look like this is going to be your sort of thing. But if you're looking to tell spooky stories, this might be right up your alley. So we've got our rules of the game. Like most role-playing games, in the Magnus Archives, the GM sets a scene, the players state what their characters attempt to do, and the game master determines what happens next. One scene logically flows to the next. You might start at a coffee shop, travel to an abandoned warehouse, and eventually end up at a haunted construction site. Ooh, before you know it. So we are looking at scene-based, which of course means that adventures tend to be linear, tend to be a little bit of a railroad. But I say it all the time when we're talking about horror role-playing games. Horror role-playing games to truly be scary, to truly pull off, in my opinion, a really good adventure, they do have to be a bit linear. It can't just be, oh, you know, everybody's telling the story and we're making it up as we go. I don't tend to think that works all that well. Okay, so it looks like the actual core rules are pretty short. So we've got actions. Here's combat. So it looked like maybe 4 pages. Horror mode. I'm looking to see where our action resolution is. Okay, so we've got a task difficulty. So 0 is routine, anybody can do it. 10 is, 30 is impossible. So I guess are we rolling a D20 here? So, okay, rolling the dice. The players always drive the action. Okay, so I guess Game Master's not rolling dice. That's fine. This means they make all, there you go. This means they make all the die rolls. If a PC leaps out of a moving vehicle, the player rolls to see if they succeed. If a PC searches for a hidden panel, the player rolls to determine whether they find it. If a rock slide falls on a PC, she rolls to try to get out of the way. If a PC and an NPC arm wrestle, the player rolls and the NPC's level determines the target number. If a PC attacks a foe, the player rolls to see if they hit. We have special rolls. When you roll a natural 19, hey, remember Tales of Argosa, the nat 19? And the roll is a success. You always have a minor effect. Minor effect means that in addition to success, you get an even better result determined by the character and the game master. For example, when jumping down from a ledge, you land smoothly on your feet. When trying to persuade someone, you convince them that you're smarter than you really are. In other words, you not only succeed, but also go a bit further. In a fight, when you get a minor effect, you could decide that you knock the foe back, distract them, or something similar. When you roll a natural 20, the roll is a success. You also have a major effect. So just like the minor effect, but the results are more remarkable. Retrying a task after failure. Let's see what we have here. Sometimes the game master might rule that retries are impossible. I guess it's up to the game master. I would think, yeah, in a situation where you're trying to do something that, you know, there's no time constraints, there's no element of danger. I guess I could see that. Spending XP to re-roll. At any time, a player can spend 1 experience point to re-roll any die roll, no matter who made the initial roll. And then we have GM intrusions. A GM intrusion reflects when something in the story occurs to complicate the character's lives. The character hasn't necessarily fumbled or done anything wrong, although perhaps they did. It could be the task presents an unexpected difficulty or something unrelated affects the current situation. In the Magnus Archives role-playing game, a GM intrusion usually heightens the tension or reveals a sudden danger. I'm just curious. Okay, so when the game master intrudes, they give the affected character 2 experience points. Anytime the GM intrudes, the player can spend 1 experience point to refuse the intrusion, though that also means they don't get the 2 experience points. So that could be a little tricky. W. Ford says, whenever they think of ciphers, they always think about the scene in Bill and Ted, where they keep discussing what they need at the moment, remembering to use the time machine to set it up beforehand. All right, so then we get combat. Characters inflicting damage. NPCs don't have a damage track, nor do they suffer stress. Instead, they have a characteristic called health. When an NPC takes damage of any kind, the amount is subtracted from its health. Unless described otherwise, an NPC's health is always equal to its target number. Some NPCs might have special reactions or defenses against attacks that are unique to them. So they have encounters, rounds, and initiative. Special situations, combat between NPCs, between characters, area attacks, stress and injury. Of course, I will get into those details when I do my review. So I always try to share like action resolution, combat resolution, stuff like that. So now we get into the player character advancement. And the statement. Is this going to be Game Master facing? Maybe not. If you played a tabletop role-playing game before, you can, of course, play the Magnus Archives role-playing game in the way that you're accustomed. That is to say, the GM gives the players a hook into the adventure so they can become a part of the action. And in the case of the Magnus Archives, the horror. However, the Magnus Archives podcast suggests a new opportunity as well. Just as nearly every episode begins with the recording of a written statement in which someone relates the details of a potentially paranormal experience they had, your own stories in the game can begin with a statement as well. Cool. So then we get the process of creating the statement. And then there's information about taking it from the statement to adventure. We've got the entities, also called the fears, the powers, the dread powers, and the things that we fear exist in our universe, spreading terror and thriving on emotional distress. These abstract beings of cosmic horror are believed to be responsible for supernatural phenomena and use these to evoke fear from victims and thereby sustain themselves. The buried, the corruption, the end, the eye, the dark. So we're going to get some details about that on each of these. Kind of wild. All right, now it looks like we're getting into the setting information because it's a world of fears. At the very end of the final episode of the Magnus Archives podcast, now, hang on, there's a spoiler here, so I'm not gonna share that. I'm not gonna read that. But I'm gonna break down the world, the institutes, the entities and their followers. So Kevin R. Smith mentions the ciphers were really old devices in Numenera. They were like ancient artifacts. Players could jury rig to find a one-time use for, despite not knowing their original functions. So it looks like this is information about the podcast characters. Get information about monsters by level. The book collector. It's the clown doll. Divine host cultist. Death. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we're now looking at the Sir Terry Pratchett death, are we? The flesh hive. The friendless. Of course, we just saw that, I guess, the Magnus Archives podcast is over. I might give it a listen just to check it out. We've got the Ringmaster. And then it tells us, gives us a little bit of info up here. And then this essentially is our stat block. So it tells us what entity is it related to, health, kind of damage does it inflict, movement, modifications, combat. We've got a few different combat abilities, I guess, interaction, and uses. Well. The Taker of Light, the Vampire. So it looks like this vampire is more along the lines of vampires from the Strain. I wonder if we'll get an adventure here. So now we're into artifacts and books. Coffin of the Buried, Dark Star, the Lonely Painting, the Slaughter Knife, some books. I'm just curious. Are we going to get... Nope. There is no Necronomicon, so just saying. Just thought I'd take a peek. Okay, is this GM section? Yes, running the game. If you're going to be the game master in your Magnus Archives role-playing game, you've got some things to keep in mind. It's not always easy, but it's not as bad as you might think, and it's certainly rewarding. That's kind of an interesting way to open this up. It's not always easy, but it's not as bad as you might think. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the rules and how the GM can use them. We'll also discuss interacting with players, running games, and crafting great stories. W. Ford says, ciphers are basically the right tools at the right time. So we get a section here discussing GM intrusion. Looks like we get a few pages about that. So as an example, using and not abusing GM intrusion. Too much of a good thing will make the game seem utterly unpredictable, even capricious. The ideal is to use about 4 GM intrusions per game session, depending on the length of the session, or about 1 intrusion per hour of gameplay. This is in addition to any intrusions that are triggered by players rolling a 1. Looks like we got a lot of page space devoted to the game master here and running the game. I like that because cipher system is different. So that means the Magnus Archives is going to be different. If your only experience with role-play games is Dungeons and Dragons, this is going to be very different in some ways. It looks like you're still rolling the 20-sided die. So I think this is how we're going to wrap up the book, is running the game, flow of information, being a dynamic game master, moving around. I do that. Voices, of course, I do that too. This is going to be our example of play. Yep, example of play. Come on. Give us an adventure. Looks like we might get more than one. The Resurrection Mound. The young family discovers strange insects building a nest in their garden. The nest grows very large and displays the ability to somehow resurrect the dead. When Tom Young dies, his wife Karen sprinkles his cremated ashes on the nest, restoring him to a semblance of life. Nice. I'm gonna skip because we don't want to give away any spoilers here. It looks like we got a few pages devoted to this. And we got Adventure 2, Liquefy. Liquefy takes the characters out into the remote countryside to look into the apparent murder of a young man named Timothy Dunn. No, he's done all right. In the course of their investigation, they discovered that a strange old man was trying to get into his home, looking for an old book owned by Dunn's father. Timothy is dead inside the home, clearly murdered by supernatural forces. Clues in the house might reveal the location of the book in question. Okay. So 2 adventures. I think that's what we get. Yep. 2 adventures. And then we get some, it looks like some appendices. Creating your character in 9 easy steps. Recommended resources. So we've got books, movies, TV shows, RPGs, video games, music, audio dramas, internet. All right, come on. Role-playing games, there's no Call of Cthulhu recommendation. Delta Green is there. Okay. All right. Oh, here's the consent checklist. Moving right along. Hey, as I pointed out before, if this is something that you feel, you know what? We're not even going to really get into anything about that. Because remember, I did an episode and I basically was saying, hey, the group I play with, we're not strangers. So don't necessarily need this. But if you're playing with people you don't really know that well, yeah, I could see using that. Okay. So that is a peek inside the Magnus Archives from Monte Cook Games. We're kicking off Monte Cook Games Month with this first look. Troy Cornelson's with us in chat. Welcome. All right. Once again, this is available now. It carries a MSRP of $74.99. You want to grab just the PDF alone, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. Very cool. I am very curious. I want to check this out. I'm going to start reading this very shortly. Sweet. All righty. So that is it for tonight's show. On tomorrow's show, do I have it down here? I think I left it upstairs. Oh, and I can't remember the exact name of it either. Rats. Okay, so we are going to be taking a look at, I think it's a miniatures game, if I remember correctly. Advanced Horde Wars. See, it would have helped if I had brought it downstairs with me. But nope, of course not. Womp womp. But that is what we're going to be taking a look at on tomorrow's show. Sweet. And as I mentioned, no show on Thursday, but stay tuned because later this week I will share my review of Paranoia. This is the core book for Paranoia. Alrighty then, that's it for this time out. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company as I'm sharing the news and unboxing games and flipping through books and so on and so forth. So it is much appreciated. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,200 videos here on the channel. I really, really do appreciate that. All righty. So if you like the video, if you've not subscribed to the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my review of, and I just moved it while I was looking for Advanced Horde Wars, my review of Fright Show Classics, A Wolf in the Fold from Yeti Spaghetti and Friends. So find out what I thought about this adventure. All right, everybody. I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.